Welcome to our show, Holding Ground. My name is Laura Richer. I'm a psychotherapist and the owner of Anchor Light Therapy Collective in Seattle, Washington. Each week, I'm joined by another therapist from the Anchor Light team to tackle important topics in mental health and psychotherapy. Our goal is to promote well-being by normalizing mental health challenges. We are here holding ground for you every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. on KKNW.
Good morning, everyone. You are listening to Holding Ground, the show that brings you a little bit of everything in the realm of positive mental health each week. We are here Tuesday mornings at 9:30 a.m. on KKNW, or of course, you can find us anywhere that you can stream podcasts at any time. My name is Michelle Mooney. I'm a licensed psychotherapist at Anchor Light Therapy Collective in Seattle, Washington. And today I'm here with the owner of Anchor Light Therapy Collective and the host of our show is always Laura Richer.
Good morning, Michelle. So I'm really excited for this show because last week we identified 12 less obvious toxic behaviors that might be getting in the way of your happiness. And hopefully we gave everyone something new to think about when it comes to looking at toxic habits. But today we're going to help our listeners and tell them how they might be able to change these habits.
Right. So Laura, just to recap real quickly, the 12 ones that we talked last week about, the less obvious ones are checking on friends on social media or otherwise, ex-partners to hope that you're doing better than they are, answering non-emergency calls or emails outside of work office hours, spending more money for the sake of convenience only, working while you eat, email or social media the second, or news for that matter too, the second you wake up in the morning, staying up late for no reason, thinking something bad will always happen, self-deprecating jokes, assuming you know about other people's finances more than you actually do, making assumptions based on that, right? Drinking to fit in, purchasing things because they are cheap and just for the sake of them being cheap, and then wondering if everyone hates you. So those are the 12 we covered last time. So if you didn't catch that, tune back in, go back one in the playlist and listen to that one because I think it was a really helpful episode.
Yes. And because it's cold and snowy out, we are taping from home today. So you're hearing my dog chime in at this moment. I apologize for that, but we'll just keep on going. So what are some of the things we can do what are the antidotes to these toxic habits? First of all, I tell clients, and I practice this myself as well, because we all have these habits from time to time, is to make peace with them. You don't want to judge yourself. That's going to just keep them locked in place. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, what you resist persists. So if you're just beating up on yourself for certain habits or behaviors, you're probably going to reinforce them and continue doing them. And then you don't want to overwhelm yourself. Changing behavior takes time. And so the first step is just to identify things from a non-judgmental perspective and maybe dig into why you're engaging in these behaviors in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Asking yourself why, right? So like you said, first notice what is going on. Second, why? Investigate that. Why is this going on, right? Why am I continually doing the same thing over and over again that I know ultimately isn't good for me? So, reminding yourselves, just because it's harder to get out of the habit maybe now, you don't have to be stuck this way. You have the power to get over these things, and you'll become more and more confident and with whatever tools you need, right? So if that's reading books that are helpful, talking to friends, talking to Laura, myself, if whatever that might be to help you break these habits, or give yourself the credit of, I think I can do it. I'm pretty sure I have the tools to do it. I just need to start doing it, right? Versus I have to do this perfectly or I'm not going to do it at all, right? Shedding that black and white thinking around these things.
Exactly, because that's overwhelming and that will just get you stuck.
Mm-hmm. So what is the next helpful thing that we can do to break these habits, Laura?
So like we said, you want to come to peace with what is happening, look at it from a non-judgmental perspective. And then the next step is to notice what triggers these unwanted behaviors. So, you notice you're drinking just to fit in. What is it about the experience that you're having that is triggering the desire to drink when you don't want to? Do you have social anxiety? Do you feel like you won't be accepted by your peers if you don't engage in the same behaviors as them? And then you can start to ask the questions around what all of this means. And, do you need to be accepted by these peers if it's at a cost to your own goals or mental health? Same with staying up late at night or overworking and not having good boundaries. You want to notice what triggers those types of behaviors. Maybe not having good boundaries is fear around acceptance as well, or pleasing other people. Staying up at night you might start to notice that you don't have good patterns of self-care because you're overworked or you're doing too much. So it just, again, in a non-judgmental way, we want to just recognize what triggers these behaviors, because that will also help you think about how you can change them.
Right, exactly. Understanding the root cause. So there's noticing and there's the investigating. And then where did this come from to begin with, right? When did I start doing this? So trying to go back to that and like, oh, okay, that's kind of where it started. And I want to kind of course correct now. So how do I get myself to do that? Because any sort of, again, there's motivation behind every behavior, but there's something that prompts that motivation that I want to go this route with it. So like the drinking at a party thing, right? Well, I want people, like you're saying, I want people to like me, right? So, well, what is the trigger underneath that? Well, they probably don't, or I'm not likable the way that I am, right? Things like that. And then that's the meat, right? Our triggers are what we really, and those negative thoughts attached to that are what is really helpful to work on versus, going to therapy, for example, and saying, well, gosh, I want to feel less anxious, right? Or gosh, I want to feel less depressed, right? Well, okay, tell me more about that, right? Like, how do you know you'll feel those things less? So, that's how we start to get to the root of these things and are able to address them more successfully.
Yeah. And then, and I think you mentioned this in our last show, like every behavior we have serves some sort of function. So even really toxic behaviors do offer us some sort of benefit or perceived benefit. Otherwise, we wouldn't engage in them. So really understanding that, what is triggering you, what you're gaining from this behavior, even if the cost is too high and you want to change it, can help you start to change the way you're thinking about these things and find different solutions.
Right. And the perceived benefit usually around a lot of these things we discussed on the last show is that instant gratification thing. It's going to help me feel better in the moment, right? It's going to distract from maybe feeling not great in the moment, right? But ultimately, what's the long-term payoff of that again? And if you're constantly just seeking reward and instant gratification, where does that come from? So
yes. So how can we practically, now we've identified things, we've noticed what triggers these responses. The next thing to do is to come up with a plan. So you might want to think through future events. So maybe you've noticed the reasons why you engage in certain behaviors, what causes you to engage in those behaviors. Now you want to make a plan of action. So let's just continue with our drinking example. Say you don't want to drink at certain events and just you realize it's a behavior that's not serving you, but when you're around certain people that might come up. What can we do to plan so that we don't fall back into patterns of behavior that we're trying to change?
Yeah, well, if people, if using this example, right, if we're drinking too much or relying on drinking as a crutch too much, if people are making you feel that way, right, is it something that those people are actually doing? Are they not healthy people for you to be spending your time with? If you think, gosh, I need to hang out with my friends this Friday, and the only way to do that is to get blasted all the time, maybe not your greatest, actual friends, right? There's some just more like party buddies, right? And asking yourself, are you at a stage in your life where that's bringing you any sort of benefit or value? So, so having investigating that. And then my plan is, okay, maybe I'm only going to hang out with Sally once a month now instead of every single Friday and Saturday night. That might not be going very well for me. So that's one way that you could work with that piece.
There, and another example in planning for how you might feel in the future is it's very easy in the age of social media to cyber stalk your exes and ex friends and see what they're doing and compare yourself to them. and you know that every time you do it, you're going to feel really bad, and maybe you're going to spiral a little bit afterwards. I definitely see this with people going through breakups. So maybe doing a plan around, what are you going to do when you have that impulse to check social media, and thinking through what the impact is going to be. So if I know every time I look at my ex and his fabulous new girlfriend and I feel upset by that, what can I do when I have that impulse to go on social media? Maybe I put my phone away, maybe I call a friend, maybe I go for a walk. Just think about ways that you can prevent engaging in the behaviors that you're going to be drawn to, because like we said, there is something that's triggering you to respond in that way.
So something that I like to talk to clients about is, so like, it's playing a tape, or I guess, I don't know, an MP3 file. Or, gosh, that even makes me sound
You're
old.
aging yourself with
no!
the tape, Michelle.
God. But playing some sort of sound. No. All right, we're going with tape. Playing the tape through. So I'm going to put this tape in, right? I'm hoping for this thing. This is the thing I'm just doing right now in the moment. But now press play, right? And let that play all the way through. So we are starting with this behavior, but what does the end result of that look like, right? Are you going to feel good on the other side of that? How is that going to work out? So we can look at nights of drinking. We can look at, okay, if I go and stalk my ex-partner again, am I going to feel good at the end of that? So before you start to maybe engage with one of these negative habits, ask yourself, okay, what is this going to look like if I actually do it? So that can be a helpful tool.
Absolutely. And then when you think about these things, I think it's important to make small changes. I mean, a lot of times, especially it's a new year, people have probably made big resolutions that they're already not following through with. But when we put so much on our plate, like I'm going to, only eat clean and work out 2 hours a day and, read 10 books a week and save every penny. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. And then we end up sabotaging ourselves by not being able to follow through with any of it.
Yeah. And this is why gyms, for example, right, capitalize this time of year. Oh yeah, sign up for this 12-month plan. It's so cheap. It's only gonna be 59 cents a month. And it's like, well, but if you stop going in February, right, you're wasting 59 cents a month, right? So they kind of bank on that. And the reason why we tend to quit so early on is, well, maybe we don't like it and we're not totally focusing on the mental health benefits of going to the gym every day at 4 a.m. But part of it is we set such high expectations for ourselves and then we don't meet those. And now I'm a failure, so I'm just going to give up altogether, right? Versus, hey, you went Tuesday and Thursday, you might not have gone the rest of the week, but you are making progress. You are making changes. So thinking in, everything, if you're making an action towards something, that's progress. Even if you're just thinking about it, that's more progress than I'm not paying attention to any of that, right? So these little steps, give yourself credit for.
Small, achievable goals. And I've never known anyone who's joined the gym in January and then stays a member for years and hasn't been able to go because they make the goals too big. Have you ever heard of that happening?
Well, Laura, on social media, I have. This is why I feel so bad. But in reality, I mean, nothing off the top of my head. No, definitely not myself.
Never has happened to me. I may never have joined the gym 2 years ago that I haven't been to. So anyway, so next, so it's really interesting to notice what we're thinking, because a lot of times our behaviors are driven by our unconscious thoughts. So, we might be comparing ourselves to others or putting pressures on ourselves that we're not even realizing where that information is coming from. So I like the practice of journaling or writing down your thoughts about, why do I want to change this behavior? What would be a benefit of doing this? What does it look like? What's influencing me to act in this way? Am I responding to messages that society has given me that don't even really resonate with me? And I think a lot around losing weight and body image is so tied into what society is telling us we should weigh or what we should be. And in reality, is that even really a goal of yours? Do you even really want that? So I think sometimes just writing down what you're thinking and analyzing where that's coming from can give you a lot of information that will help you change behaviors.
Right. Yeah. And that can kind of look like, the CBT model, right? So I'm having this thought that leads, to a behavior, right? Emotions can kind of come out of that. So thought, behavior, and then what are we doing with that? So, challenging yourself and investigating those things and asking yourself is very helpful. So again, it's like really breaking down how to think about these things, how to behave differently, understanding where the roots of it coming from. So then we have data and meat that we can work with, as opposed to, well, I just got to stop this thing and I didn't, so I suck, right?
Yeah. Yes. So what do we have next on our list here? Prioritize your plan. So this is where I think a lot of people really fall short, is they tell themselves, I'm going to make all of these big changes or even small changes. Just going to power through, tap into my willpower and do it. But they don't really create space in their lives to follow through. They don't have a plan in place. And again, then after a few days after you've made these resolutions, you're back to your own old behaviors, feeling completely defeated.
Right, exactly. So if we think about the plan, again, not going from one extreme to another of I'm never looking at email outside of work, right? I'm never doing that anymore. Because we were talking in the prior show about people who do this too much, right? So if you go to the extreme opposite end, again, that's too much pressure that we're putting on ourselves. So what is the plan? And the plan might look like, in this example of, okay, you know what, if I'm kind of having a down chill moment, I see an email coming through my boss and I can say, you know what, it's fine. I can answer this right now, right? This isn't causing me any sort of distress in the moment. So kind of giving yourself not necessarily outs, but reasonable expectations with these things. So again, it's not just either pass, fail, right? There can be an in between. So, setting a good plan for yourself in that way can be very helpful. And of course, this you have to kind of make a plan to sit down and make a plan, right? And that's also where we can fall short as well. So giving yourself time to, okay, today part of my self-care routine is to sit down and make a plan, because the best forms of self-care we can do for sometimes, a lot of the times is, okay, yeah, I'm going to have hot bubble baths and, eat chocolates every Friday night or whatever the typical self-care looks like. So a self-care can definitely also look like, how am I going to care for myself in the future? So for the example we were using in the last episode about not getting enough sleep. Yeah, I don't really want to go to bed, but I want to care for Michelle tomorrow. I want Michelle to be happy. So I'm going to sleep tonight and I'm going to care for her tonight, if that makes sense. So that can also go into part of the planning piece.
So noticing when you're going for the instant gratification versus what you're doing to go towards your long-term results. And sometimes instant gratification is what we need, but maybe not all the time. So we want to think about, what is like you said, what does future Michelle need? What is the outcome of some of this behavior going to be?
Yep.
And I cannot emphasize enough, reasonable goals are so important. And I see this a lot of times with new clients who are engaging in therapy for the first time, and they're so excited. They're so ready to make changes and change their lives. And I love that attitude. And that's why I love being a therapist. And at the same time, sometimes the goals are so big. Like I'm going to have perfect boundaries with everybody, and I'm going to heal all of my childhood trauma, and I'm going to, change my life in big monumentous ways. And I need it to all happen in the next 2 to 3 months. So let's get going here.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. Some folks will come into therapy and they expect immediate results, right? And progress takes time, right? If therapy was a one or two session, in and out the door kind of thing, therapy is really good self-care. And yes, we don't necessarily want everyone to be in therapy for, the rest of our lives. That's not necessarily what we're saying, unless if that is something you want to do, that's great as part of your self-care. But it's a process, you're learning things about yourself, new, like this list, for example, right? Where are these behaviors coming from? So it's not, I'm going to make an appointment with Laura. I'm going to go in for 2 weeks, or I'm going to tell her the first week, here's all the things I want to fix. And then the next week, you're going to do that for me, right? That it's not just, I don't want to do these things anymore, fix me, right? There's no magic wands in life or therapy or otherwise. So reasonable goals.
Yeah. And I think when you have that perspective that healing is a process, behavior change is a process, that you just kind of create some space and have some compassion for yourself. You're actually, sometimes in slowing down, we go faster. We're less likely to sabotage ourselves. So
yeah, right.
The next thing that you want to remember as we're working on changing behaviors, because remember, instant gratification feels good. That's when we're drawn to it. So we need to remember the rewards of not going for the instant gratification, for doing the thing that future Laura or future Michelle is going to really reap the benefits of.
Right. Yeah. And so sometimes imagery with these things can be helpful. And I don't necessarily mean imagery of like sitting on a peaceful beach. I mean, visualizing yourself doing these things better and reaping the rewards of these change behaviors can be really helpful, because you're planting that in your brain now, and your brain is seeing like, ooh, that might feel good too, right? Maybe let's investigate that more. Let's try to do that. So actually visualizing yourself feeling accomplished and feeling proud of yourself, and reaping the rewards of these change behaviors can be really helpful.
Yeah, and being connected to why you want something, and really, and I think visualization or hypnotherapy can be a really great avenue for being able to explore some of these things, is you want to know why you want to create a certain outcome. If you're not really connected to it, you're not going to do it. So if you have the goal in mind, I need to make $1 million, but you don't have any really real connection to what your life would be like if you had $1 million, you're not going to do the things that are going to put you on that trajectory. Same with, having certain types of relationships, or doing certain diets or exercise programs. You really need some sort of connection to the outcome in order to make it happen. So have you ever had a goal, Michelle, where you weren't really connected to it, and so you didn't follow through in the end?
Oh, I'm on the spot.
Yeah. Well, you think I have one. So, I mean,
okay,
good. a million, health and fitness regimens I have really wanted to
fair. Yes, that's
in.
a good one. Yes.
Yeah. And, I might do it for a little while, but if I don't, I haven't really felt, overly connected to building big muscles. And so, I might lift weights for a little while, but I don't have a good connection to what it would be like to have a lean body and have all this strength. That just isn't, it looks nice. There's people who look great who are in shape, but like for me personally, I have not yet totally connected to what I need to really dedicate myself to that kind of regimen. On the other hand, there are goals that I've achieved, starting this business, growing this business. I was very connected to what I wanted to do, and I had a vision, and because of that, it's easy to do the work to keep going.
Yeah, vision and purpose are really helpful in these things, right? So starting, your own therapy practice, that was a passion project for you, right? So that was a good goal to have. There was a good reward out of it versus well, it looks nice in the movies, right? Yeah. Look at, all that mansion and, all these great things. And it's like, but do you want that, or somebody else telling you want that, right? So asking yourself, is it mom and dad telling me that I have to go to Harvard? Is it, society telling me certain things, whatever it is. And it's like checking in, like, is this actually what I want to do, right? Before you get on down the road to something, so that's very important.
Yeah. And I think, maybe you can speak on this. Graduate school is a great example. And I know that you were really excited and passionate about becoming a therapist. And so graduate school is really hard, and there's a lot of, and you're working for free, and there's all these things that are unappealing about it. But if you're connected to the end goal, you're going to follow through because you know what's on the other side of it. Did you ever have that feeling in graduate school? Like, this is not what I want to be doing, but there's something for me on the other side.
There's something for, and to clarify that point, what you mean is like, I don't want to be doing grad school. Not that I don't necessarily want to be doing this work. Of course, we can always second guess, like, wait, did I make some sort of mistake? Right. But
right.
No, yeah, the grunt work sometimes, right? But if I'm doing grad school to make somebody else happy, there's no positive in that. I hate grad school. I hate the job it gave me, right? It's just making somebody else happy versus, when you and I decided to go to grad school at one point in our lives, right? We were doing it because of purpose. Purpose was driving us.
And I had a client years ago who went to nursing school and went into a lot of debt to be in nursing school because her family really pushed that this was a stable, positive career path to go down. And ultimately, she was never able to finish it because she was not connected to it. There was nothing about this person's personality that said nursing or caregiving. So in the end, she wasn't able to follow through because it wasn't her goal. And I think that's the most important lesson here is when we're wanting to change behavior, there has to be something authentic within you that wants to make that change.
Right. Exactly. So the last one we have for today, and this is the one we'll always suggest, is in whatever capacity this looks like for you, ask for help if you need it, right? So if that is reading, more Brené Brown books, if that means going to our website and reading blogs, if that means, talking to a friend, whatever it is, ask for help, ask yourself. So sometimes we don't think about this. Ask yourself for help that you might need in the moment. And that can look like, for example, of, wow, I'm really distressed about this thing right now. Okay, so what is the distress telling you need? Well, I need to slow down, or I need some comfort right now. How can you address those needs for yourself in the interim before maybe you can ask other people for things, but also learning how to fulfill your own need for help in the moment, instead of always outsourcing that. But of course, seeking outside help is always important too. So if you're not doing great with something, if you're not doing great with achieving one of these goals, and maybe, let's say the, eating while we're working, or, working while we're eating, right? Maybe asking somebody else to hold us accountable in the beginning, right? Or, hey, I noticed that, I know you really want to work on this, and it seems like maybe, you're still doing this behavior a little bit too much. You're still not spending as much time with the family, right? Someone else to hold us accountable, not in a shameful way. Something like that can be helpful in terms of asking our loved ones for help, right? They might not have all the answers for us, but they can help us point out things that maybe we're not seeing for ourselves.
Yes, which of course is one of the benefits of going to therapy. I personally have made many behavior changes in my life with the help of a coach or a therapist. And one of the benefits of that, and that's not always possible for people, but when it is that somebody can offer you a perspective that you don't have. When you're stuck in all your own stuff and feelings, it's hard to see the whole picture. And so sometimes somebody, and it doesn't have to be a therapist or a coach, it could be a friend or a family member, but sometimes people can offer you a perspective that you don't have access to on your own.
Right, exactly. Yeah, getting outside of your own stuff. So, we tend to really just, and this is human nature, right? Because biologically, we are programmed to only think about ourselves from a survival standpoint, right? If I need to forage for my food and hunt for my food and run away from scary bears for myself, right, to survive. So that's where that, function first started for ourselves. So we can, we still continue that in a lot of ways by only looking at maybe what might be affecting us, only really getting consumed in our own thoughts and our own problems, right? Versus zooming out, there's other perspectives, there's other realities going on at the same time existing around our own. So yeah, talking to somebody else can give us that perspective.
Well, Michelle, we are out of time for today. I hope everyone took a little something away that will be helpful for them in the new year to change some of their habits and get on track for creating what they really want in 2022.
Yeah, happy New Year, happy 2022 for everyone. Hopefully you were able to bring it in with peace and joy and people that you love to be around. Or if you hate that, I hope you enjoyed your time alone, whatever that may have looked like for you as you signal in the new year, whatever that process looks like. I hope it was meaningful to everyone. And, of course, to you, Laura, as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, you can find us here every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m., where we bring you a little bit of everything in the realm of psychotherapy and positive mental health. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Holding Ground. You can hear us here every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. on KKNW. I'm Laura Richer at Anchorlight Therapy Collective.
Find us online at anchorlighttherapy.com.
And we'll see you next week.